the clothing didn't make you professional. It just made you not unprofessional. What's happening, Skid Steer Nation? It is your host, Ryan Deemer, with another episode of the Skid Steer Nation podcast. As always, this show is brought to you by skidsteernation.com, your home for high-quality American-made attachments. Jump over to skidsteernation.com and see our wide range of assortments of attachments, all made in the United States by small family-owned manufacturers. So if you're looking for high quality and dependable products, look no further than skidsteernation.com. Well, listeners, I knew this day was going to come. I didn't know when, but it is upon us today. My guest today is Ryan Martin. He owns MTN Edge Excavation. And we had an awesome conversation about a week and a half ago. And it wasn't until we got done and I was all excited and pumped up about it that I realized we didn't record it. So I had to take it on the chin, call Ryan back and go, hey, man, I fucked up. We didn't make sure it was recording. We were having some technical issues getting him and us connected on the platform we use. And by the time we got it all set up, the auto recording function must have turned itself off and I didn't notice it. So we had an amazing hour and a half conversation that nobody will hear but us. So I just want to be upfront and honest with that. It's kind of a good lesson for me, man. It's like you can take it on the chin and regroup, assess, and start over again, or you can play the role of the victim and says, oh man, why does this stuff always happen to me? So if you're having one of those days at work, you're not alone. I've had that day too. Take it on the chin, suck it up, reassess, replan, and get back at it. So with that out of the way, let's introduce Ryan. Ryan, thanks for coming on the show again.
No worries. I'm excited to be here again.
Yeah, man. I always hate that we have to re-record this stuff, more for the reason that the authenticity of our conversation isn't going to be as good as it was the first time. Like some of the things you told me that I was like, whoa. But I think the story itself is still an amazing story. There's a lot of guys out there that's going to learn something today that they can either use for inspiration to move forward with their business or incorporate into their business and get to the next level sooner and faster than trying to figure it out on their own.
Yeah. I tried not to stew on our last conversation too much just so I didn't say the same stuff.
Yeah. Well, I went and rode my bicycle across the state of Iowa last week. So for 7 days, we rode 500 miles. The heat index was 115 for 2 of those days. I literally thought I was going to puke one day. So to be fair and honest, I was so busy grinding that out that I don't remember the details of the conversation, just the bullet points. So it'll be good to go over this again with you today.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's dig into this, man. So you started off MTN Edge in 2020. COVID's in full rage. Everyone's not sure what the world's going to bring. You go out and start an excavation business while in college.
Yep. I think I was in my second or third year of school at Utah State University is what it's called up here in Utah, northern Utah. Essentially, my brother-in-law approached me with an idea of starting a business and we kind of dove in together at it, so to say. And just kind of from there, it spiraled into what I'm doing now, basically.
That's awesome. Were you nervous at all about it taking away from your studies or your studies taking away from the business? Or is it just like, hey, I'm at a young age, I can conquer the world. Let's go do this. I'll figure it out along the way.
Honestly, I did not like school. I didn't really want to finish my degree. So to me, it was like, man, this is way better than going to school. I'll go outside and work, or I'll jump in the skid and go to work over going to class because honestly, I hated going to class. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun, but because I was already committed to it and already in that deep, I kind of decided I better finish it out. So it was honestly a stress relief to get in the machine and do some dirt work and grind that way compared to sitting in front of a computer looking at studying for tests, all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. So did you finish your degree?
I did. Yep. I got a degree in ag business, bachelor's degree. And, that was a big, huge weight off my shoulders when that thing was done.
Yeah. Do you find that degree is helpful at all in the work that you're currently doing?
Yes and no. Like the aspect of the persistence of trying to get through it, I think, carries over into the business because there's days that just plain and simply suck. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to do work. You don't want to do paperwork. So I kind of see it helping when I sit down and do paperwork, like bids and estimates and stuff like that. So in that way it did. Honestly, the rest of it, I don't know if it did as much, just because I didn't put my whole heart into college, so to say, probably.
I gotcha. So how did you start this business? Like, were you renting equipment? Did you go out and buy something? Or how did you get this thing off the ground?
So we actually started in the decorative landscape curbing industry. And my brother-in-law, like I said, he approached me with that and said, "Hey, you want to start this?" I was like, "Oh, might as well. I got nothing else going on." And so we started there. And then he's actually a full-time electrician. So we were just going to do the weekends, Friday, Saturday. So I was like, "Oh, might as well do some dirt work on the side and throughout the week to fill my weeks." So I actually rented a skid for my dad, one of his older ones. And we rented that for quite a while. Ended up buying it from him. But that was kind of how I dove into the excavation side of things anyways. I always knew I loved it. I always knew dirt work was kind of my passion. I did it for a long time. I ran his equipment when I was younger here and there. And so that's kind of the gist of how we got started in business. And then a couple months later, I ended up buying my brother-in-law out. We just kind of figured where I wanted to take it full time, I'd be able to go a lot farther. So I just bought him out. Ended up selling the curbing machine side of things and didn't want to do curbing anymore. So I just dove straight into excavation and ended up buying that skid of my dad's. It was it's an older one. Like I said, it was the one I was renting. So figured might as well just buy it off of him. So we kind of worked out a deal and I bought it off of him from there.
Yeah, you're always better off buying the old buddy than the old buddy you don't.
Oh yeah, yeah. And he had that. Matter of fact, that was the machine I grew up. That was the first skid I've ever operated. That was the first one I learned on. So it kind of had a little sentimental value to it. Of like, this is the one I want to buy. It's it's not brand new, nice by all means, but to me, it's kind of nice running the sentimental.
Let's see how sentimental it is. Do you still own it today?
I do, but I'm currently not operating it.
So you upgraded, but you still kept the old family heirloom.
Yeah, yes. Right now, I'm actually kind of renting my dad's newer one. That old one has been in the shop for quite a while, so I figured, well, I'll just rent this one for try and get through this year, and next year I'll probably end up purchasing a new one. But I don't think I'll ever sell it. It's nice having around as a backup.
Yeah. And then let's be honest, like when equipment gets to a certain point in age and certain point of hours, like the value of the memories and you growing up and the family is way more valuable to you than the minimal amount of money you're going to get for it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to get very much out of it at this point. So,
yeah. So you're currently married. That sounds awful when I say that. It sounds like you're getting ready to go through a divorce. I'm currently married. So you're married. You've got two small children.
Yeah.
I think you told me last time that your wife kind of helps out a little bit on the admin side of that and help managing a little bit of your social media accounts.
Yeah. So she kind of, she runs the books a little bit and she helps me. Like when we were setting up the business, she helped with a lot of paperwork. So she kind of does the computer office work, so to say, more than me, just because, like I said, I hated that aspect of school. I still hate running a computer today. So it's really nice that she can help me out there with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And how old are your two kids?
Our oldest will be 4 here in a couple months. And then our youngest is about 1.5 years.
And how many hours a day are you out working?
Honestly, it depends. Normally this year, it seems like been doing about 80 to 90 hour weeks consistently.
So maybe I was right to say currently married, because I'm sure your wife can't be impressed.
No, she doesn't like it. I'm pretty lucky in the aspect of her, because she understands that this is a busy season, so she takes on a lot and does a lot for me. And I guess I get lucky in that aspect that she understands. Now, it's harder to say goodbye to the boys when they say you need to stay home on a Saturday or don't go to work, on the weekend. So that's a little harder. They don't quite understand yet.
Yeah. And that's got to be tough. And I'm going to assume just because of their age that you're probably missing out on some key moments.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That first year in business, I only solely focused on business and I couldn't get it off my mind. I couldn't turn it off. So I felt like I missed my son. He was only 1.5 1.5 back then. So I felt like I missed, like I just woke up and he was walking. I was like, man, I don't remember him starting to walk. When did he walk? He's like, oh, he's been walking for a couple of weeks. Oh, I missed that. And then I missed the first time he went to a swimming pool. Little things like that you want to remember as a dad.
Yeah. So how did you change your mindset from being 100% focused on work to being able to turn it off when you needed to and be attentive and available to the family?
So honestly, this past winter, I did a lot of, I guess, soul searching, so to say, just trying to figure out the same aspect of how do I turn it off? Because like I said, I did feel like I was missing a lot. And one of the biggest things that I found during that time was the guy was talking about how he was in his aspect of life and his work. He kind of was going through the same thing. He was always felt like he was always worried about work and never really was with his family. So he kind of implemented a thing in his life where instead of worrying about work while he was with his family, he worried, let's say, from 8 o'clock till 7 o'clock at night. That was his day. During that time, he strictly worried about work, and that was it. And then he made sure to get everything done that he could. And then when he left, he did not bring any of it home, and he focused more on being attentive to the family instead of wondering what's going on with work. So essentially, I tried to implement that. So now instead of coming home and worrying about, okay, what do I got to do? What do I got to do here? What do I got to do there? I'll make a list before I go home, or I'll make a list that night or when they're in bed or something, so I can come home and say, I'm at home for the next hour, half hour, 10 minutes, no matter what it is at night. I can dedicate that time to being with my boys or with my wife and not have to worry about stuff because of that.
Yeah. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of listeners out there that are on the same path. We're having a hard time shutting it off when they get home. And did you notice that at the beginning, it was really hard? You had to remind yourself on a consistent basis, numerous times a night, hey, that's work. We're not on work hours. Or was it just second nature?
No, I had to remind myself a lot. It was hard, especially that first year in business was really hard because it's kind of you're new, everything's kind of new to you. So it's like, man, if I don't do this, I'm not going to get this client, or if I don't do this person's not going to get back to me, or if I don't do this is going to happen, So it was a lot harder to turn it off because of worrying. If that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. It does.
Good.
In fact, I mean, I'll be honest, like last night I lay down in bed and I was tired. And as soon as my head hit the pillow, 15 things work related popped in my head. And I had to go through like a mental process of like, exactly what tomorrow brings, exactly what you need to do. There's zero reason for you to sit here and dwell on it while you're going to do nothing about it. Close your head, get a good night's sleep, and you'll be ready to attack the day tomorrow. But and I practice this stuff, and it's not a light switch. You don't just turn it on and turn it off when you want it. And I think a lot of guys out there are like, well, it's easy for him, but my life's different. I'm like, no, it's not easy for anybody. Like it just takes conscious effort so that when you recognize it, you can say, okay, I'm not being attentive to my kids. That's my goal. I recognize the thoughts about work. I'm going to let it go. I've written a list down. I'll deal with it tomorrow. And then you just have to let it go.
Right. Yeah. And that was one thing we talked about a little bit more last time was making our list. So, before, and this is something I didn't mention, but before I go into my home, I always kind of sit in my truck and take a minute and, think about, okay, what's the most important thing that I got to do tomorrow? Or is there something in the morning time that I got to be to on the job site, and just trying to go through my day one more time, make sure I got everything, make sure to write it down. I have a little planner that I use. That might sound funny to some guys, but I'm not a big phone guy, so I have to write it down on paper. So yeah, even take 30 seconds to a minute before I walk inside and write all that stuff down. That way I know when I walk through the door into the house, I don't have to worry about it because it's written down in my truck.
Yep.
So that was...
Yeah, we did talk about this in pretty good depth too, because when I tried implementing this stuff and like, all right, I'm going to let it go in the evening, I just couldn't do it. And when I finally started making that list of like the 3 most important things tomorrow, and then the secondary list of all the little things I want to work on, I could just tell myself it's written down. You don't need to think about it.
Yeah. When you go to lay down at night, like you say, everything kind of starts rushing in because if you're relaxed, but it's like, you can tell yourself, I've got it written down. Quit worrying about it. Just go to bed,
Yeah. And it's a lot easier to control your thoughts with those statements when you have it written down, because you can truly believe it. And you're like, he's right. I'm right. Why am I dwelling on this? I know exactly what tomorrow is. I've got the punch list. Let's get some rest so we can actually be fresh tomorrow and attack the day.
Yep. And there's even times too when I'm like, man, did I write that down? Or I think of something like, no, I wrote that down. I'm good. Just quit worrying about that. It's written down. So much better to write it down, have it on paper.
Yeah. So I was always a paper guy myself. Like, I'm in my mid 40s. So we didn't grow up with a phone in our hand in our teenage years and early 20s. I mean, I don't think I got my first cell phone until I was 24. But I've had to make the transition to going digital and more mobile, because the team that works for me, they're all remote. So I've had to go into like having a calendar app manage my life. So that way my team has access to it and they can either add appointments like these interviews or some other things we do, or at least look at it and say, oh, he's not available Wednesday. Can you do Friday instead? So I thought I was going to hate it. And it's just like anything we do in life, right? Do it long enough and it becomes the new habit.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, like if it's not on my calendar, I will not be there, because I live and die by it.
Right.
I made plans for this weekend. My nephew's in town. He's in the United States Air Force Reserve, and we have the base here in Peoria. He's like, dude, I'm going to be in town. I'm like, yeah, stay at the house instead of the hotel. She's like, cool, we'll hang out all weekend. I'm like, can't wait. Haven't seen you for a long time. He shows up last night because he started working today. And I go, hey, bad news. Said I leave Friday morning. I'm going to a music festival in Iowa for the weekend. I forgot about it. He was like, how in the world do you forget about a music festival? And I was like, wasn't on my calendar.
Yeah.
So it's not even like work things. If it's not on my calendar, like I got to be reminded. Tracy's like, what time you leaving Friday? I'm like, for what? She's like, well, you're coming over to Iowa to meet me and you're bringing the nephew so we can take him to that concert. I'm like, oh shit, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with, like if we have something going on the weekend, like a family thing, we have a little calendar in our kitchen on our fridge. And if it's not written on there, I have no idea what we're doing or if we had something planned.
Yeah. I can always tell by the questions I ask Tracy if I'm too focused on work and not being attentive in our relationship or our personal life, because I get the eye rolls and I'm like, remind me, what's this event for Saturday? And she's like, Jesus, Ryan, I've told you 4. I'm like, okay, I'm not paying attention when she talks. I'm thinking about work. Like I've got to remind but that to me is like that yellow flag of like, okay, we're getting out of balance. Let's reset. Yeah. How do we become present again outside of work? So I always tell everybody, if you can find some cues that you can go, oh, that typically means I'm not present or I'm anxious or worried or upset, like then you can actually make a change. Because if we're not aware of those situations, then we can't change it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that works with business too. Like how many days do you go to a project and like you could have been completely pissed off and upset, or you can take a breath, reassess, replan, and get back at it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of days like that.
Yeah,
it seems like.
And everybody that owns a business, you can choose A or B, and some guys might get mad for a moment. They just need to blow off the steam and then they can get into the thing. And that's their if that's their process, that's their process. But if you think about when you work for other companies as you're coming up through the industry, nobody you remember the really bad boss that always blew his top and he was always the victim and everything happened to him and not for him. And then you also remember if you work for a guy that took extreme ownership, was calm, deliberate, planned, but you don't remember the guys in the middle.
Right. 100% true.
Yeah. And as you're getting ready to grow and you don't remember the guy that blew his head for good reasons. It's for bad reasons.
Yeah. It's always something happened with the machine or you might have made a mistake and he blows his top because it just finally set him over the edge or
Yeah.
It's never for something good.
I can't tell you how many business owners that I've worked with over the years that when they will get into a moment or a specific project where they start showing they were angry and it was this operator's fault and they didn't have this done right. And I will always look at them and go, remember that boss you told me about when you were 17 or 22 or 30? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, why are you becoming him? And they literally just like, you can watch the mouth drop. You can watch the whole body relax. And they're just like, shit, I am. And I'm like, I get it's stressful. And we're like, we got deadlines and cash flow issues and like things that the normal employee doesn't get. I'm like, but that's not their responsibility.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility. You raised your hand and said, I want to be a business owner. It's your responsibility to be different than the guys you hated working for.
Yep. And I think too, that like, you talk about balance, it comes to a point where you as a business owner, you got to balance. Are you going to become that guy? Or are you going to become this guy? And, you got to sit there and kind of contemplate with yourself. Am I doing what I need to be this guy compared to this guy? Am I making sure that this situation doesn't stress me out too much so I don't become that guy compared to this guy? And, it's good to sit down and have a little moment to yourself, think about those things, because
it really is. And to expand on that, Ryan, I can tell when I'm not spending enough time with myself working through business, personal, whatever, because I do become short. I do become agitated, and I do become like, people don't want to be around me because like, you never know when he's going to like say something snide or act agitated or roll his eyes. And I think even the guys that are good at it, cause it's a good reminder, like take a pause, spend time with yourself.
Yep. I ran into the same thing this week, actually. Sitting in I'm working on my first commercial job. I've strictly just been in residential on my own. When I've been in business for myself, I've just strictly been residential, but I've worked on the commercial side when I worked for somebody else. So I dug somebody's shop foundation for him, and he basically just approached me and said, hey man, this is about the best dig I've seen in the last couple of years. I work for so-and-so company here in the Valley, and it's a big developing home builder. So he said, hey, we got some commercial stuff coming up. It's small for the commercial, but for you, it's going to be a bigger job. And long story short, he wanted me to do it. So we ended up putting a bid, and he kind of told me, he's like, yeah, there's other people that are going to be putting in bids, but like, we're going with you because of this. So the course of the last week has been very stressful, trying to figure out logistics of these bigger jobs, and a little bit more nervous and whatnot about it, just because he says, the pressure of, hey, if you do good on this, I can line you up with, I think they said 3 or 4 other contracts coming down the pipe, that are pretty decent sized jobs. So I just yesterday I was putting in the water line and something didn't happen right, and one of the pipe wrenches slipped out of my hand and just kind of tore up my hand, and just kind of everything came crashing down, and I had to just kind of sit there and basically kneel down in the trench, said, you know what, I'm gonna take a minute and just kind of relax and enjoy being in the dirt here and kind of come back together, and so I don't just cuss out the water line and just throw it and cause a big scene or something. Just little things like that. And so taking that moment and sitting down, relaxing in the trench, looking at the dirt. I know it sounds funny, but man, I love being in the trench, and it relaxes me, and kind of come back to being a well-balanced business owner, I guess, so to say. But yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like you've got pretty good self-awareness of yourself, and like you're able to understand when you're grounded and like when you're not, before it gets too far out of line.
I think so. I'm definitely not the best at it. I definitely, just like everybody, have a lot to work on. But yeah, this year I'm really trying to focus on emphasizing that a little bit more, especially when I'm on job sites, when I'm doing stuff, when I'm home, when I'm with family, when, just kind of everything.
Yeah. And listen, man, if somebody tells you they're the best at this, it's one of two things. They're either a monk that's hiding in the mountains away from the real world, or they're full of bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, life is not simple, like the ups and downs. And like, you ever seen that that diagram where they say what we expect for life, and it's like a straight 45-degree angle, nothing but like moving to the path of success. And then it shows another line that says life in reality, and it's like got a huge mountain, and then a big dip down, and then a high, and then like Like, let's be honest, like that's life. Like it's not a straight, smooth line. There's highs and lows and valleys and plateaus and,
Oh yeah. Yep.
the good
Especially
Lord.
in business, man.
Oh, the good Lord's going to throw everything at it. You think business is tough? Wait till your kids get to be teenagers.
Yeah. I try not to think of that.
Wait till you're not the smart, cool guy anymore. And you're like the dumb dad that like, stop calling me.
Yeah. Well, if my boys are anything like us, I'm in for a long ride. When I was young, I grew up in Wyoming, so it was the Wild West out there, jumping trucks, jumping everything we get our hands onto, crashing crap, giving a run for money for parents. So yeah, I'm a little nervous about that stage.
Ryan, we would literally take my dad's truck and like go find old backcountry roads that had mud puddles and like big gouges in the road and like things you could get air on. And we'd go mess around for an hour and we'd be like, that was awesome. Like we gotta go to the car wash and clean it. We'd go back to the town, we'd pressure wash the truck and get it all clean, make sure there's no mud anywhere. And then sure as shit, as soon as we're done cleaning the truck, one of us is like, let's go do that again. I mean, there was days that we would wash that truck 3 and 4 times because we just wouldn't stay out there. We'd go back and think we were done. And then like, I want to go do that again.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I know damn well that we didn't make it perfect. So my father had to have known, but he never said a word about it.
Yeah, luckily my parents were pretty good with us. We crashed some trucks, we swamped trucks in rivers and ditches and crap. And we put things through the ringer.
Yeah, I was terrible.
It was fun.
I was terrible in high school. Like high school to me, I was on the lucky side of things where like high school is boring to me. So like I was in like my senior year, I was in most of my classes were advanced placement classes, like college level classes, and I got out of school at noon. I never once took a book home. I didn't even know where the hell my book bag was for nine months out of the year. And my dad was just like, how the hell are you passing? I'm like, no, Dad, how am I passing with a 3.7? He's like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
He's like, hell, you're drunk every Wednesday through Friday. And I'm like, how do you know that? He's like, I'm not stupid.
Yeah. I was the same way. My senior year, I actually, I had to take 8 classes to get credits to graduate. So 4 of them were PE classes. So I didn't, and our PE teacher was my football coach. So he didn't care. He loved it. It was after that, you get home, you go do something else because you got nothing else to do. So go jump a truck or something. Yeah.
I remember there was one, I think my junior year, like I was on track and I was fine. And there was no electives that I wanted to take. And he's like, well, you can take study hall. You don't get credit for it, but you don't need it. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And he was like, you're awful excited about that. I'm like, yeah, Coach Benning teaches it. Like you know how easy that's going to be? We're going to be talking about football plays all day. Like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. Oh, yeah. So where are you at right now? Like with business, like you get this opportunity that we didn't have last time we spoke. Yep. If you do some great work, an opportunity for some other big projects. Is this like, are these projects large enough that it completely changes the trajectory of your year and possibly your business, or they just can be a nice little bump?
Probably more towards this could potentially change my business. I've wanted to, this year I've been trying to figure out what to niche in. I don't know the word. I get that from the podcast. And so I've been wanting to do site development because I love prepping for concrete or putting in a culvert or digging footings, foundations, that kind of stuff. So these contracts are going to be site prep. So digging right now it's a pool house that they're putting in. So I dug all the footings and foundation, doing all the slab prep. I'll do all the concrete prep and all that. So, and these ones are big enough that I could now kind of go out. I've been wanting to purchase a GPS system for, skid steer, a little box grader, stuff like that, or put it on my mini or just things like that. But yeah, so now because of these contracts, I can go out and start looking at, hey, what do I got to get for to get the skid ready to go for prepping all this concrete and stuff like that. And then I've also been thinking now that I've got these bigger jobs and a bigger steady work, I really think I'm going to take the plunge into hiring a couple guys. And that was something we talked about last time, whether or not to hire guys or not. And, there's a couple things that you told me that really stood out and I've been stewing on for the last week or two. And
let's review those. Let's review those. We can actually share them with the audience and not just keep them to ourselves.
Yeah. So basically, the two biggest things that stood out to me, we off the phone last time when we ended the conversation on the podcast, we talked about kind of my fear of hiring employees, and because I'm a really big perfectionist. So there's things. What was it? The 80-20 rule, I think is what we call it.
Yep, we talked about the 80-20 rule. So anyone out there listening, there's an old philosopher. His name's Pareto. I think it's Pareto. He's got what he calls the 80-20 rule. And if you can literally apply this to any part of your life. But if you look at, like, if you have a group of friends, 20% of you will be the leaders of the other 80, or they will do the work of the other 80. If it's like a group doing like organizational work, 20% of your employees will do 80% of the work of the team and all of that. So as an owner of the business, I think my advice to you was, like, think about it this way. If you hire a couple guys and they can't be as you, they're not going to be as perfect as you because they're not you. But if they can do 80% of what you did, that gives you back how many hours on per project to go do your estimates, to do some book work, maybe stop in and have lunch with your wife. And then you just have to go back and take it from the 20-yard line to the goal line for that last 20%. So like that's the way I look at it. It's like we have 4 team members on my team plus myself. So that's 5 of us. So I feel like I can get the work of 5 people done if the other 4 do 80% as much as to the level that I want it done, because then throughout my day, I can do the 20% of all of them and still have 20% of my day to do stuff for myself.
Yeah. And ever since talking about that, literally from that day until today, I've been thinking, oh, this somebody could do this. Somebody could do that. Like I'm pushing a pile or I'm moving a pile of dirt. It's like somebody could easily do this. You know, this is just part of the work that we got to do. It's not the finishing touches. So it really stood out to me of, wow, what can an employee really do? And then I can come back and, like you say, take the ball from the 20-yard line and score a touchdown or whatever. And really push it.
And if you're really good, you'll take that ball and score a touchdown while training them how to do it.
Yep.
Because the goal isn't for you to continually finish the project for them. The goal is to get them to the level that they think and finish the way the company visions and values and mission statement say we do work.
Yep.
And the best way to teach, the best way to grow is to teach and let them do that. Let them have some small failures, use them as learning examples and move forward. But even if at the beginning, though, if you can get them to do the dirt pushing work while you're doing the fine tuning and the finish grade, you're still light years ahead. Yeah.
Well, there's just so much right now, there's so much work coming in that it's hard for me to get to everybody and stay afloat, so to say, because there's so many estimates that I could do. There's so many people that are ready to do the jobs, but I just can't get to them because I'm still working on this one.
Yeah.
So just having that aspect of, man, if somebody can be there to help me with that 80%, we can go from doing this job in 2 weeks to 1 week. Now I can get to another job, a week earlier, and in turn, I guess, make a little bit more money.
Absolutely. And let's go look at it from a different point of view too. Like, you don't even need to leave the job site. You could be in the truck writing up estimates, calling suppliers, calling potential customers, until you're comfortable leaving with them. So it's not like you're going to hire them and then walk away from them and leave them alone. But look at those hours you gain that you're spending in the evening that you could actually be doing some of that work during the day. And then you get out of the truck at 1 PM, you help those guys with the project. I find it to be beneficial to actually let them know what you're doing in the truck. Otherwise, they start thinking you're watching Netflix eating Cheetos.
Yeah.
So they've got to be aware of what you are. And then, just to reiterate, man, I'm so glad you guys are able to do this project without me being out here. We were able to knock out 3 more estimates to make sure we have work for next month. You guys are doing an amazing job. And now they're like, oh yeah, I'm pulling my weights for the business to keep moving forward. But it's all that communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the other thing that resonated with you when we talked about this?
It was the whole owning a business compared to owning an expensive job. That was. Yep. Yeah.
So we talk a large majority of guys in this industry started as an operator working for somebody else.
Yep.
And there's something about that company or the boss or something that made them say, I'm out. I'm going to go start my own. I don't need to be under your thumb.
Yep.
And what happens is like, hey, you're a great operator. Like, yeah, you can run a skid steer, you can run an excavator, you can do whatever, but they don't know how to manage a business. So like now you're completely green in one area and you got to figure that out while doing enough work to bring in enough money, and the stress level increases. And then the mindset is like, it's got to be perfect. I can't mess it up. Like what you're talking about. Well, at that point, if you have to be there every hour of every day, you don't have a business, you have a job. Because if you go on vacation, you don't make any money. Because if you leave at noon, you don't make any money. Where if you own a business, the goal is, and like, let's be honest, day one, it's a job. Like you have to do all you have to wear every hat the business hat owns. So you have to do all the work. But over time, you need to be like strategically putting people in different places. Even if it's like what you did with your wife, outsourcing your book work. Those are hours that you gain back every month to work on something else that moves the needle forward for your business. So it doesn't have to be just a laborer. Hire a marketing company to manage all of your social media and your paid ads. It's still work that needed to be done. It just means you don't have to figure out how to do it. You found a professional for that. Bookkeeper, same thing. Hiring your first laborer. That's when you start owning a business, is that when you can remove yourself for an hour, a day, a week, and the business keeps moving forward, it doesn't fall flat on its face. Yeah.
And I think ultimately the 80-20 rule, and then, that also I've been stewing on ever since our conversation. And I'm ultimately since then, it's like, man, my fear of hiring employees is like kind of out the window. It's kind of more of now I need to bring that on. It might be uncomfortable for the first week or two, but I just need to embrace it and just get over that, hire the right guy, and then treat him right, train him up and whatnot. And, so basically what I'm trying to say is I'm more excited now to hire that after stewing on that instead of,
and let's put this in perspective, Ryan. How long have you been thinking about hiring an employee where it was a fear?
Oh, it's been probably a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah.
We had a conversation 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And you have had a complete 180 in mindset shift in 2 weeks based on two topics that you remember from our conversation that took your fear and moved it to excitement.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, it just goes back to showing like mindset. Like when you find yourself in things that you're always being fearful of, start asking yourself, what am I afraid of? What are the worst case outcomes? What's the best case outcomes? What could we be happy with in the middle? And then all of a sudden that fear doesn't have control over you anymore. And you can work through it and either figure out if it's a good decision to move forward with or a bad one and walk away from it.
And it just goes back to like we were talking about earlier, having balance in your life. If you don't have an outside source looking at you saying, dude, what are you doing? Compared to me and my little world being fearful. And then, having your perspective of, dude, you don't need to be fearful about this. Just embrace it. And this is what you can do. This is how you can do it. And, just change the total perspective about having employees.
Yeah. And it's funny because I find that mindset's probably the biggest thing that holds back myself included, business owners.
Yep,
so
definitely.
I just had a call 2 days ago with a mentor for me for my business. And he's like, how are you making progress on this video course that you're creating? I said, I'm not. He's like, why not? And I'm like, I don't know why. And we dug into it. And it turned out when I was truthful with myself, like I was afraid to have it done for a few different reasons. And then when we talked through those reasons, I was just like, that's ridiculous. Like I should be excited to get it done and get it off my plate. But I needed that outside person to like walk with me through the decision making, not make the decision for me, but like guide me through that process.
Yeah. And I think like a business mentor, somebody that's been through it and understands it, is huge. I guess I'm kind of lucky in the aspect of my dad was a business owner, so I've been able to go to him for advice on how to run a business. But it's way different going to my dad compared to maybe a buddy that just worked for somebody else. My buddy, he's never ran a business. He doesn't know what it's like. So just having the two different perspectives and outside perspective, I should say, is just so key and crucial sometimes when it comes to making decisions in business.
It does, man. And I'll tell you right now, like we started this podcast, like the idea was to interview you guys and like create good content that people could learn from. But my goal was to get more exposure, spend more time with people, get them to look at the website, buy some attachments, and maybe call me because they want some help with some consulting in their business. What happened was this became the favorite part of my week personally, because I'm getting to connect with other people that are in the trenches trying to figure shit out to grow their business. And as much as like I hear guys say, I learned a lot from our conversation, or I love what you had to say about this, don't get this wrong. I learned something new or drive home something I already knew every time I have a call with one of you guys.
Yeah.
Like it fills my cup. Like if our body was a cup with full of energy, like certain activities drain your energy, right? This podcast interviewing stuff fills me up with energy, and I get more excited to go out and do more work.
Right.
Because I'm learning something new and I'm able to connect. Because a lot of my friends are the same way. They all go to a 9-to-5 job or whatever job they have, right? So you go meet them for dinner or a drink, and you start talking about accounting or estimates or this part of an employee. They just kind of like glaze over. Like, I don't understand anything you're talking about. We just talk about football.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't understand, man. Matter of fact, my dad and I were having a conversation of, because I was in the process of buying a new machine, and I bought it, and I was like, man, this is a little nerve wracking putting this much money towards this and that. And a buddy of mine kind of said, oh, we just put a couple $1 million into this project. And I was like, well, is it your own money? Oh, no, it's the company's. So it's like the difference of your own money, it's leaving your bank account, it's gone, compared to somebody else's. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference. Yeah. And then you'll meet a business owner that says that exact same statement, and it is their money. And it makes you realize just how small in the grand scheme of life our investments in $80,000 or $100,000 worth of equipment is. Like, it seems huge to us today, but I will guarantee you in 10 or 15 years, $100,000 to you would be like, whatever, just go buy it. Company needs it.
Yep.
It's all perspective.
Unfortunately, I'm seeing a little bit of that this year after buying the machines. And now it's like I just bought 3 buckets and a compaction wheel. So it was, $15,000 or probably $10,000. Well, maybe not that much, but still the $7,000 to $10,000 stuff is like, oh, it's nothing now compared to buying the machine.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast episode or not, but the first guy I ever did this with, his name's Eric. He's out in North Carolina. He started out part-time as a police officer, and he bought a Kubota tractor, and buying that tractor freaked him out. It's like 20, 30 grand. And he's like, now I sit in my kitchen, I look out the backyard, and I've got, a brand new cat skid steer, a brand new 309, a dump trailer, the dually truck, the flatbed trailer. And I don't look at it as, holy shit, that's a lot of money. I look at it as the tools I need to provide the service and the solutions to the customers that I have.
Yeah.
He's like, but 5 years ago, that was not the mindset I had.
Yep. Taking that plunge, man, it's a hard plunge when you first get started trying to get your equipment inventory up.
Oh, absolutely it is, man. And I keep talking to guys that are younger like yourself, and I keep reiterating the same fact. Like, if you're younger than, say 35. I was going to say 30, but you can even go 35. Who gives a shit? Make the plunge. What happens? You fail and you got to start over. You're young enough. It's not going to affect your life. Like I'm 40, I'll be 46 this month. So if I invested every penny I had into a business and it failed, I'd be like, oh shit, what am I going to do for retirement? So like my level of risk is a little bit lower. My appetite for risk is still high, but my level of risk acceptable, it gets lower the older I get. Right. Yeah. But man, when I was 25 years old, I had an opportunity to buy my first business. I didn't even lose a minute's worth of sleep. I'm like, let's do it. I'm like, what's the worst that happens? I lose $150,000. I'm like, whatever. I'm 25.
Yep. I was the same way. Matter of fact, there's 2 things that I remember that I, without question, took a leap into. The first was my dad called me up and said, hey, my brother-in-law, his son-in-law, he said, hey, his name's Brock. Brock's got a potential fishing trip in Alaska that we can go on. You want to go? And just without a doubt, yeah, I want to go to Alaska. Same deal. Brother-in-law called me up. The other brother-in-law called me up. Hey, we got a business. You want to do it? Absolutely. I want to do it. Those are the 2 things that I felt like never hesitated about.
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, I'm not saying to like jump in without doing your due diligence and your research.
Right.
Like go prove the concept, make sure the market has a need that you can fill, that you have a solution that's different than the guy down the road. You provide more value than them. But if you can check all those boxes and it requires a $200,000 investment and you're capable of doing that, do it.
Yep. Oh yeah. That it's kind of a fine line. Like we're talking about jumping in, and guys, if they are listening to this thinking, man, should I take the plunge or not? Absolutely take the plunge, but you also got to be smart, because you really could lose your tail end on these things. You got to, like you said, you got to put in some research of what's out there, what you got to do, what kind of equipment you need to do this particular thing compared to this particular thing. Because you could get a skid steer and do site prep, so to say, like I'm doing, and you can use it to do, let's just say, grading a thing. But the guys that are doing land clearing, they don't use their skids to grade, they use it to do land clearing. So they gear their skid steer setup more towards land clearing compared to grading. So you got to understand kind of what you want to do and put the due diligence in of, do I want to do this scope of work compared to this scope of work, just so you can kind of know how to set up your skid. So it's not like I'm going to set it up for all of it and spend countless amount of money just to get it all, and now I only need this.
Yeah. And I always make the joke, I mean, because I can't think of anything dumber than this. But like, it'd be like being a guy in the suburbs of Chicago that says, I really like fixing gravel driveways, I'm going to start a business doing that in downtown Chicago. Like, that's a guy that did no homework on what the market in his area needs.
Yep.
Like he'll be out of business in no time flat. So again, like doing that research, like, like if you live in a large community with nothing but city services, I wouldn't start a septic system business.
Yeah.
Like you have to look at what your market needs, and is it a growing demand or a shrinking demand?
Right.
Like a guy that took a job at a newspaper 10 years ago was silly, because you could see 10 years ago that newspapers were shrinking in demand, and now they don't have a job and they're crying about it. And I'm like, you didn't do your homework.
Yep.
And you also have to be flexible to be able to change. Like when you started out, like you're probably doing a little bit of everything. And then you found a niche with those rock walls and a few other things, I believe. And now site prep's coming up, and you're like, hey, we can pivot, really enjoy the work we do, and probably have more opportunities to do this.
Yep. That, like you say, the rock wall, that to me, rock walls was just kind of to fill the books and keep my schedule busy. But now that it's like, man, I want to specialize in this, because I know that work can continually come in. Rock walls are kind of going to become a little bit of a back focus, because where I'm at, quite frankly, there's 3 or 4 companies that just do an amazing job at rock walls. So that market's pretty covered. But in the site prep of things, it's not very covered where I'm at. There's a lot of room for work. There's a lot of room for that, because the development here is growing so much, and it's starting to hit out to the counties and into these different places that aren't normal, I should say, or that are more off the beaten path. So of course they need somebody to come in and do all the site prep. So that's kind of why I was doing that. And now it's nice to be able to transition out of rock walls, if that's something I not really want to do, but I had to do it to fill a schedule, make money with. But now I can pivot and not have to do so many of those.
Yep. And this sounds ridiculous. I shouldn't say ridiculous. This sounds simple, but it's often overlooked by a lot of people. Like, you're getting ready to be presented with a potential opportunity that's going to put you in the area of a lot of contractors and so in a different level of work than what you've been doing. Make sure that you look presentable. And I don't mean like not dirty from working, but not ripped jeans and not Slayer t-shirts. Make sure your trucks and your vehicle and your equipment are washed and maintained, and make sure that they're branded with your company. So when people drive by and they see what's happening, they know that Mountain Edge is the company that did it.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually, we talked a little bit about the guy on your first podcast, the gentleman there that talked about being professional, looking professional. When I first started, I thought, man, this is great to be able to go to work in gym shorts and a t-shirt.
I remember you talked about that. Yeah.
So this year I kind of transitioned. I bought some nice, I think they're called cargo shorts or whatever, but just nice, presentable shorts. I still do wear shorts, but they're nice and look good, look professional. And, just having that aspect look, it makes a big difference. And matter of fact, the job that I'm working on now, I used to work for another company, and my old boss, this was kind of the reason why I left him. He basically, long story short, he came to me, or I came to him and said, look, man, I want to work my way up in the company. I want to do this, do this. The owner was trying to get me promotions, I guess, so to say. He presented an opportunity to become a foreman and kind of do this and make a little bit more money in the company. And the the right-hand man, so to say, in charge, he just came to me and said, listen, dude, you're not worth nothing. You're not a good worker. You're not this, you're not that. You're only worth like $20 an hour to me, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, dude, I don't need this. So again, long story short, left the company. And now that I'm working on these commercial jobs, it's the same area that they're working in. And now he drives past my truck. He drives past the job site. He sees that, well, this is pretty, I guess, professional. I'd like to think I'm professional. I don't want to come out and say, yeah, I'm the best professional there is. But it was nice. Like, it was kind of a, man, I'm flipping the bird to you and say, yeah, you can suck it, because look at this. I don't have to put up with you anymore.
It's amazing what a little bit of spite can do for motivation.
Yeah. And that was kind of an off story that it just, like, when you said look professional, that was.
So let me ask you that, because I could sit here and say my thoughts on it, which you probably listened to 8 different episodes and hear the exact same comments. But when you made the transition from gym shorts and whatever t-shirt you got out of the closet to like a company branded shirt, we're not talking about like dress slacks here, but like a newer pair of shorts and like looking better. What did it do for you personally?
So honestly, the biggest thing was the confidence level. Like, I would go to an estimate, and last year when I was wearing gym shorts, I'd go to the estimate. It would go good. We'd talk. But then when I transitioned this year, I was like, man, I got to get in those nicer, presentable thing. It gave me a sense of confidence that I didn't think that I guess didn't know that I needed, so to say. So just going to the estimates, I felt more confident. It was easier to talk to people from their perspective. And this is just, I guess this is my perspective on them. They looked at me and said it was a little easier to talk to this guy because I think he's a professional. He is a professional. So it was confidence on both ends, I guess, from their perspective. And
you're 100% right on all of that. The clothing to the customer is like, literally, it's the first glance, right? Like we make a girl in a car could drive by and we make an opinion of her real quick, whether it's good looking, ugly, big, fat, tattooed. Like, you have a judgment this fast. The same thing happens with us when you show up at a job site. Like, the clothing didn't make you professional. It just made you not unprofessional. And then your confidence that you gain from wearing those clothes, you present yourself in a different manner. And that's what makes you professional to the customer. Yep.
And in my opinion, if there's a guy out there that is he pours concrete and he's the best concrete guy around, if he shows up at my door and he's in a ripped t-shirt and shorts or ripped jeans, from the moment I see him, I think, man, are you sure he's the best guy around? But if he showed up looking nice, looking professional and presentable, I would just think, man, he really might be the best guy that pours concrete around here.
Yeah. And there's more to being the best or the perceived best in your area too, because there's a couple guys in Peoria that are really good at what they do. And I won't hire them for any projects around my personal house because I don't know when they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
I could have the best looking stamped patio of concrete and stained and it'll look, like live edge wood if you want it to, but I don't know when he's going to get to it. And I'm not in the business of hounding a guy to give him my money.
Right.
It's like I always tell contractors, like, just communicate. If you can't get to them in 3 months, tell them. Either they're okay with it or they're not. But at least you guys can have a conversation about it.
Yeah. See, and you mentioned that, and that was one thing I struggled with too when I first started business. I was scared of saying, hey, I can't get to you for 3 months because I was scared to lose the job. Now it's easier to say, hey, I can't get you 3 months. They come to me and say, okay, we want to get it done this week. It's a lot easier to say, okay, thank you for your time. If they don't want to go with you because they want to get it done earlier.
Right.
So I think not being fearful of communicating.
Yeah.
That makes
and
sense.
It does. It just, you're a little bit more confident because you've been doing it a little bit now. And it's not like, oh my God, I got to do everybody right. And I got to do it right now. But I will just add on, just like, there's people that are going to say that I want it done next week. It's okay to say, listen, I understand that that's what you're wanting. And I hope you can find somebody that does a good enough job that you're happy with to hire for next week. I, unfortunately, am not your contractor for that. My schedule's booked out for the next 3 months.
Yep.
And add this one sentence. If for any reason something changes in your schedule or you're having a hard time finding somebody to fit your schedule and you're willing to wait a few months, please give me a call back. I'd be more than happy to come out, look at it, walk through it with you, give you a bid. and get you on the books.
Wow. Yeah. I like that. Matter of fact, today somebody, a concrete contractor reached out and said, hey, I need you to demo such and such and prep all the concrete here. I need it next week on the 16th or week and a half away. I was just like, dude, I sorry, I can't get to you. Okay, see you later. Thanks for your time. And that was it.
Yep.
But yeah, I've never thought of, if you need it in a couple of weeks or when I'm open, give me a call.
Listen, a contractor, they're on time schedules. Like, that's why he didn't care. He had to hang up and find the next guy that'll do it. But a residential homeowner, most of it's a want. It's very rarely a need that it needs to be done next week.
Yeah.
Most of it's a want, right? But if they can't find a guy that meets the level of satisfaction that they want and they have to wait 3 months, let them go do the homework. But just make sure you leave that door open by saying, hey, if for any reason anything changes and you're okay, waiting a few months, please give me a call back. I'll walk you through the project. We can get a scope of the whole work. I'll give you a comprehensive estimate. Don't forget, we have a guarantee on this. We also offer this service, this service, this service. I'd be more than happy to give you that bid and get you on the schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 seconds could make you another 50 grand a year if 5 people, 10 people circle back and say, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, and even like, you say that, and I think, man, it's true. If they really did their homework and find out, hey, old Billy Bob down the road that can do it next week, he's not going to do a good job. I really don't need it done next week. I can wait a month or two for the good guy to get here.
Right.
I'm going to get on his schedule, so.
Yep. And 100%. And if they don't want to wait, then they don't wait. And then I can't tell how many contractors I talked to that get a phone call months later from the same person that say, hey, I had John Smith come do this project and it's really not done the way I want it. Whenever you have some time, I'd like you to fix it or finish it.
Yeah. Yeah. Always leave that door open.
Yep. Absolutely, man. You have to. You have to always be polite. You always have to be open.
Yep.
Because you never know what next project he needs. And you making that statement at the end of that conversation could be the difference of him. Maybe he finds somebody else to do that project, but maybe he's got another bigger project coming up next year. And that could have left a good taste in his mouth. Like, hey, he was not afraid to tell me that his schedule was full and he wasn't able to fit me in, but he would be willing to do this, this, and this if I'm willing to meet him. I like that about him. I'm going to call him again for the next project, but I'm going to call him months in advance because I know he's busy.
Yeah.
So you're a new business owner starting out. This is a hypothetical. You're sitting down at a table in a diner with yourself. What advice do you tell the new business owner that's getting ready to jump in or has been in business for less than a year?
What advice would I tell them?
Yep.
Honestly, from what we talked about this go around and last go around, I think it still come back to the whole, don't lose your mindset. Don't lose your head. Take the plunge, but keep a good head on your shoulders. Don't let little things worry you. Don't worry about this and that. Focus on what's most important. Get it done. And don't worry if so-and-so isn't happy or you can't get to everybody. Basically, I guess the gist of it is don't worry so much. I mean, worry to the point where you need to worry because you got to get your business up and going, but don't over worry.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. I think it's great advice for not only somebody starting a business, I think it's great advice for somebody that's been in business too, because we all go through seasons where we forget that. Whether you've been in business for a year or 25 years, you will go through a season where you forget to be grounded and you start acting a little irrational. I know I do too. So it's a great reminder for anybody and everybody.
Like I said, this last week and a half, 2 weeks, because of this job I'm working on, I feel like I've really lost my head. I give that advice and I think, man, I gotta follow my own advice this week.
I love it. So, and sometimes saying it out loud to other people makes you realize like, oh, I'm a great, this is a moment that I should be doing, do as I do, not as I say. And I feel like I'm doing you the disservice of saying, hey, do what I say and don't watch what I do because I'm not doing that myself.
Yeah. Yep.
So awesome, man. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview again. I love the first one we had. And the beauty of it is I feel like this conversation was substantially different than the first one. And we still covered a lot of great topics. And I think there's a ton of information that people can implement into their own personal life, their mindset, their business, that they can help them get to the next level in their journey. So thank you again for so much for being a part of the show. We're really glad that that you had us. If there's anything that Skid Steer Nation could ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you allowing me to come on and be a part of this. It's been great.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And if you guys out there are still listening, please do me 2 favors. One, hit the subscribe button, whether you're watching YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple. Make sure your notifications are turned on. We're doing our damnedest to release a new episode every week. We've been shooting for Wednesday mornings. Please subscribe that. Number 2, please tell your friends and family, especially if they're in the excavation industry, about the podcast. The only way we grow is by you guys kind of spreading the love and telling other people about the show and about what we do here. It's always inspiring to hear people's stories. I mean, hell, a hair salon owner could still be inspired by listening to an excavation owner, because business is business. The struggles are the struggles. The books are the books. The marketing is the marketing. The mindset's the mindset. It doesn't matter what industry we're in. We just make it specific to excavation for this particular show. So share, subscribe, and until next time.